Thriving in turbulent times. How to build a culture of resilience. Panelists: Yvette Akpavetta, change management strategist and advisor; Noelle Walrond, coach, speaker, author, and entrepreneur; Deborah Wright, entrepreneur and forgiveness life coach; moderator Cheryl Nembard, speaker, author, podcast, and TV host. This is part of the Community Resilience Program of the Transformation Institute for Leadership and Innovation. Visit transformationinstitute.ca.
In 2008, we felt that it was important to start a program to reach out to young people in our community because there was a lot of violence and there was just so much going on that was not positive about Black youth or youth in sort of disadvantaged neighborhoods. So we started a crossover mentorship program to reach out to these young people, to bring people that look like them, to share their experiences with them, let them know that they're not alone in whatever they're going through, that somebody else has probably gone through the same experience. And like Maya Angelou said, when you learn, teach; when you get, give. And that's what the program is all about.
If we don't catch them early, they could be falling into the wrong hands or into the tracks that we don't want them to be. They have to be contributing to the society, not the other way.
It's important to have a mentorship program like this in the community because a lot of the time people are focused on their own lives and a lot of the time it's very separate. This actually lets people come together and learn from each other.
Kids nowadays, I think they spend too much time on the devices. They don't talk enough. Everything is a machine. And the ability to communicate, we have to go out and work and deal with other people. So I think any interaction where they have to learn to deal with other people, going to school and doing activities that they enjoy doing, I think you're gonna have a lot of success, but it's also a great teaching tool.
See, I can't afford to sleep till 7 o'clock, and people think you do, but discipline is important.
This mentorship program is really very significant simply because it ensures that our young people, our youth, who are the future of this country, it's obvious, need to be able to participate. We have for them to open up the system more and make it equitable, and for them to easier able to access that field of employment and education. What the Institute is doing along with the program is to ensure that students and young people can reach their potential.
It gives them career coaching where they can learn the difference between a job and the difference between a career, knowing that a career is something that's more long-term versus a job is something that you just may do to pay the bills, to get by. And also during that transition from being a youth to an adult, which is very key and it's an essential part of growing up. And also it provides them with mentors that can give them not only the guidance, but give them the tools they need to be successful in life.
Hi, my name is Baladia Jamali, and I was part of the Rio 2016 4x1 team with Andre DeGrasse. We won a bronze medal last year, and I was also part of the crossover mentorship program in 2008. Being a part of that program has changed my life and made me a better person today. So I challenge you to come and join this program.
And welcome to the launch of the Community Resilience Program of the Transformation Institute for Leadership and Innovation. The aim of the program is to encourage positive transformation through the sharing of practical solutions to help the community cultivate mental, financial, and physical resilience in facing the challenges of this new normal. Now, the program is being run primarily as a virtual webinar, but we're also going to be having public service announcements, social media campaigns, and shared information via a web portal. Now, moderator for today's program is Cheryl Nembard. I'll just take a little moment to read her short bio. She's a dynamic woman who is an international speaker, an author, a podcast and TV host, as well as a social justice advocate. Her dedication to community service includes working with at-risk youth, former gang members, sexual assault victims, and teenage mothers. Her not-for-profit educational theater company, EMG Education, has performed special assemblies on topics such as mental health, anti-Black racism, and bullying in about 170 high schools across Ontario, impacting over 75,000 students. CBC Canada has recognized her as one of the 150 Black women who are making Canada a better place to live in. I'll now give it over to Sharon Emhart, who will actually take us through today's event. Hey, Sharon.
Hey, Patricia, thank you so much for having me, and welcome to everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. I'm so excited to have you with us. Today, we are going to be talking about a very important topic, which is thriving in turbulent times and how to build a culture of resilience. Today is the first in the Community Resilience webinar series, and this has been organized by the Transformation Institute for Leadership and Innovation. This series will discuss many topics to do in and around resilience, things like mental health, business, finance, heritage, and we're going to explore the impact of the pandemic on the BIPOC community. Now, before we jump into the conversation, I've got a couple of housekeeping tips for you guys. Number one, today's webinar is being recorded and televised, and we'll share how to access this session after it's all over. We do welcome you to revisit the content, and please share it with your colleagues. Number two, we also invite your comments and questions. Guys, this is interactive and we want to hear from you. So please look for the Q&A chat box on your screen. If you think of a question for the speakers at any point, you are more than welcome to type it in there, and I will either pose it to our speakers at that time or I'll hold it for our discussion portion, which is at the end of the event, but you will be heard and acknowledged. Number three, we have several questions that have already been generated that we'll be posing to our panelists. And as a reminder, if you have a question that you've not yet submitted, please enter it in the chat box and we'll get through as many questions as we can. And before I continue, it's my privilege and my honor to introduce the president of the Transformation Institute, Moses Mawa. Please have a look at this video.
Moses A. Mawa is the president of Silver Trust, Afro Global Television, Destiny, and the Transformation Institute. He is the architect of business, media, ministry, and social innovation brands, including the Crossover Mentorship Program. Moses co-founded the Marcus Garvey Institute with Dr. Julius Garvey, son of the legendary Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and their associate, Michael Dawson. As a film and television executive, Moses has produced Synergy, Standing Ovation, The Minister, the Omabella drama series, and contents for other private and public sector establishments. His Excellence Awards initiative has honored Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter, Bernice King, Bob Marley's wife, Rita Marley, Nobel laureate, Professor Wole Soyinka, Jamaica's first female Prime Minister, Portia Simpson Miller, South African music superstar, Yvonne Chaka Chaka, and others. The Transformation Program has awarded many Canadian leaders and innovators. Publisher of Envision, Destiny, Legacy, Diversity, Excellence, and the Discover magazine series, Moses has authored the 150 Extraordinary Canadians Legacy book with his wife Patricia, the foreword by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. In 2016, Moses and his team launched Afro Global Television, a 24-hour super channel that informs, empowers, uplifts, and entertains with great programming. Moses received the York Regional Police Civic Leadership Award, Real World Visionary Award, the Harry Jerome Media Award, Toronto Police Community Service Award, and the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal. In 2013, CNN featured Moses and Patricia in a half-hour worldwide television broadcast, calling them the Power Couple. In 2019, Moses participated in the Royal Canadian Navy's leadership program. A proud husband and father, Moses holds a BA degree in film studies from Carleton University, among other achievements and honors.
everyone. I am truly delighted to welcome you to this special program as we celebrate our heritage and engage our community in regards to the special community resilience program presented by the Transformation Institute for Leadership and Innovation. This is a free webinar series that we are so happy to be able to present. It's a 6-part program actually that has components that include fortitude and resilience, which is what we are actually having today. And this is actually focused on thriving in turbulent times, how to build a culture of resilience. And hereafter, we will be having the mental health initiative, which is intended specifically to address the impacts of COVID-19 and how to navigate challenges of mental health. We are also quite delighted that we are able to include a component specifically actually for business and personal finance. Many people are actually going through horrendous challenges because of the pandemic, and we want to be able to bring in experts to provide insights and information in order to survive these incredibly difficult times. And therefore, this aspect will be actually focused on managing your business and personal finances during these disruptive times. I am also pleased to let you know that we are looking forward to having a special session on health and wellness, and that will be focused on the pillars of optimum health during a pandemic. And we've decided also to ensure that our children and students are not left out. So we will be having a session to enable those actually who are participating in studies virtually or otherwise to be able to cope and to still be able to succeed. So that aspect will be on addressing systemic disparities in the education sector, particularly actually focusing on students of color. We have actually seen the statistics and information in the media and from government sources about the fact that our community, particularly, in fact, the Black community, indigenous communities, and other communities of color that are actually so adversely impacted by the pandemic. And we want to actually do our best to ensure that it is actually easier to manage overall. And then the last session is actually going to be on our heritage. And this time around, we've basically decided to ensure that we focus it on 25 years of Black History Month, then, now, and the future. Some people may have not actually recognized the fact that it has been 25 years actually since the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine stood in the Parliament of Canada and presented her proposal to ensure that Black History Month is celebrated in all of Canada, in our schools, and government settings and the private sector and so on. So it has been 25 years since then. So we will actually be celebrating that aspect as well, because even though there are challenges, we need to still be able to to have a group, right? So every aspect of this program is intended actually to enable us to survive these difficult times, but then also to prepare us to be able to bounce back better. That's actually one of the hashtags that we've created for this particular initiative. I'm so happy to let you know that this project could not have happened without, of course, the incredible work that the Transformation Institute for Leadership and Innovation has been able to put into this project. And also had the support of the Canadian Red Cross and the Government of Canada, and the Afro Global Television channel, which is basically now across Canada on Rogers Cable, Bell, TELUS, Eastlink, and some other platforms that are coming up soon. And then lastly, but not least, of course, the support of Silver Trust Communications, and that has been actually supporting this particular initiative's development and will actually ensure that it actually is executed successfully. The vision of the Transformation Institute is to unlock the impacts of good leadership and to accelerate positive change through innovation. The Transformation Institute for Leadership and Innovation has been established with the mission of improving lives for personal and collective success. The central tenet of the operational strategy of the Institute is to minimize costs and to maximize the impact of our work through collaboration, technology, and the harnessing of the power of diversity. So our key objectives that are actually very central to everything that we are about include to provide strategic mentorship for youth, women, and men, to undertake capacity building programs for sound leadership, to transform lives through good work in regards to research and innovation, to advance great values such as harmony and cultural diversity, to maximize the positive impact of citizens and even immigrants, and finally to accelerate performance through the conferment of fellowships and awards. So I am once again so happy to be, presenting this amazing program to you. We have absolutely amazing panelists who will be able to share insights and information, and you'll also be able to, contribute by sending in questions that you might have. And I'm sure it is going to be a phenomenal initiative by way of how it is activated and, of course, the continued conversation through social media and so on. So thank you so very much and enjoy the program.
Thank you so much, Moses, and it's a privilege and honor to be before you. I'm so honored to introduce now our panelists to you, and it's our hope that you get to know them not only in this particular moment, but as they unpack a lot of the questions that we all have as a community as we navigate through these difficult waters. My first panelist tonight is Yvonne Akpoveta. Yvonne is a change management strategist and advisor and a change leadership advocate with over 20 years of experience helping executives, professionals, and organizations navigate and transition through change, most especially in today's disruptive environment. She is the founder of the Change Leadership, a series of events and conferences focused on preparing leaders, change professionals, and organizations to better respond to change in today's fast-paced and disruptive business environment. She works closely with executives and professionals to provide coaching and advisory to help them more effectively lead and manage change in their organizations. She's a published author as well, an inspirational speaker, and a change catalyst. And boy, do we need her for this conversation. Yvonne, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So happy to have you, and we need to talk about change. Can't wait. Next up, we have Noel Walrond, a coach, a speaker, an author, a philanthropist, and an entrepreneur. Noel was brought up in an entrepreneurial household, which is where he developed a love for private enterprise. He is the president and CEO of RAM Inc. with clients including Rogers Communications, American Express, and international charities such as World Vision and the Hospital for Sick Kids. Bravo to you, sir. In 2010, Noel launched his own coaching practice. He's the president of My Dreams Work, Inc., and that's a company committed to helping people align their passions with their lifestyle. Coach Noel now offers his program online, and he is the author of the book, I love this title, There Is No Tomorrow, The Ultimate Guide to Beating Procrastination. How are you today, Noel? How are you doing?
I am powerful, awesome, excited, and the greetings from Jamaica. And I want to say, and thank you to, of course, Moses and Patricia for this great invitation to be here. I'm looking forward to being able to share and contribute.
Okay, thank you so much. Deborah Wright is next, and Deborah is a 3-time published author. She has authored the books, a memoir, Becoming Deborah Wright, and she has written the Forgiveness Journal. She's a best-selling author in a book called Anthology, Broken Trust. Deborah is an entrepreneur and has successfully crafted her forgiveness life coaching business as an affiliate of Dr. Keith Johnson's 83 Academy as well, where she gained a lot of wisdom as a student and a mentee. And she's a mentor with Emerge Inc. She helps to give her mentees strategies in goal setting and in execution. She's an award-winning leader, speaker, also with the Christopher Leadership Lumen Association. Deborah, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you, Cheryl. And I just also want to say thank you to Moses and Patricia for the opportunity to be on here tonight. I'm looking forward to this conversation because I think it's going to be really great and it's needed in this time.
Yeah, it's most certainly needed. And, I think I want to start off with the question that all of us need to not only ask but answer for ourselves. Let's do a wellness check-in, shall we? How is everyone coping in this pandemic? How are you doing in this so-called new normal? Let's start with you, Deborah. How are things?
There are days when you kind of feel despondent because, it's totally new for us right now. We can't go out as we want to. We can't visit families and friends. And, for me, one of the hardest things was not being able to see my mom and my grandchildren, and the kids as a whole. I couldn't see them, and that was very difficult. But I think, what I have learned is that when times are hard, that we have to pivot a lot and try new things and try new strategies. And I was able to do that, being able to just sink myself in, as opposed to sinking in despair. I was able to change, and do something different, upgrade myself and do things that, could put me on a better trajectory. So, go out for walks, go down to the lake, even though it's cold, but just to be able to cope and to, just to feel that you're still alive. Because if you're not careful, you can become so engrossed in all the negative aspects of life right now. So I think just doing something good for myself, doing something good for others, staying in touch, touching points with others. And I think that has really helped me.
I love that answer, Deborah. And you know what I'm hearing from you is that you're saying it's so important in this moment, this tough season that we're in, to be intentional with how we navigate our joy, our space, our wellness, making sure that we are getting the exercise, the stimulation that we need, because it is very easy to slip and fall into a real rut. And I'd love to hear from you, Noel. Any thoughts on on what Deborah said, or how you're doing in this time as well?
Thank you. Naturally, just like everyone, I think the toughest part for me has been connecting. Like, my daughter lives abroad; she lives in the UK, and and so we were supposed to be seeing each other for Christmas, and and of course, everything has been thwarted with that. So, not having that connection. Thank God for technology, so at least you can communicate in a certain, which shortens the gap, so to speak. But obviously, not the same as being in person. But otherwise, I'm big. One of the things I always tell my students is that in life, it's adapt or die. You've got to adapt to the changing environment, or otherwise you can end up like the fossils, and it's something where I've had to make some real quick adaptations, everything of my business online, and I know people, for example, who have brick and mortar stores, where we've been working on, okay, well, how do I transition from this? Because even though none of us really knows when these lockdowns are going to end, none of us really knows, whether this vaccines are coming out, what the real impact is going to be. And so I function from the place of worst case. And it's like, okay, if these stores, if we were locked down for the next year and we could not physically go out, what would I do now? How do I generate now? Like, what do I create now? And so when I'm working with my students, that's one of the things that we focus on. And also knowing how to becoming financially literate, because one of the biggest challenges right now is that people, a lot of people have sort of been stuck in one sort of way of doing things, and where this global reset is very real, and the impacts on us all financially, including with all the money printing that's happening with the Bank of Canada, the Federal Reserve in the United States, and banks all over the world. They are printing a lot of money right now. And so how do you protect and preserve the wealth that you have, like the things like gold and silver, understanding that, so financial literacy, if there's ever been a time to get off of Netflix binging and really get into, like, looking at guys like Peter Schiff, Robert Kiyosaki, I think people who are really explaining what's actually happening. So diving into those things and having my things online and moving everything online and actually learning how to trade, learning a new skill and learning how to trade Forex, and, learning new skill, not getting stuck in the old way of doing things. I guess because the old way for me was being in front of people, and now it's like, okay, now I'm doing it this way. So, okay, so what do I got to do here so that I'm still relevant and I can still generate and provide for my family? You know what I mean? And so that is how I've adapted. So I'm very grateful that everything is online, and I've been able to help a lot of people steer through this challenge.
Yeah, the word you just said it there. It has been nothing but a challenge, financially, emotionally, physically, socially, in all these ways. It has been quite a challenge, and we are trying to find the tools together as a community to navigate. Yvonne, how are you doing during this time?
I have to say, I'm doing great. I've had the challenges from a business perspective. One part of our business has always been about events and conferences. So immediately the pandemic hit, we had to just stop doing events, and the year prior, we kind of invested quite a bit of money into the next year's events. We were going to expand, we're going to do all kinds of things. I think I was even a little bit in denial, because in February, one of our participants from previous events said, "Oh, so are you thinking about a plan B?" I'm like, "Plan B? No, we're going to hold our event." And, soon after, it was all about the pandemic. So from that side, we had to postpone our events, we had to pivot and do different things. But what we did was find the opportunity in it. So we had to be open-minded. We had to innovate. We had to think about what our customers wanted. How could we continue to serve them and connect with them? Because for some businesses who had to put their services on hold, it was just straight, we're putting our services on hold. But we said to ourselves, we don't know how long this is going to take, but we have to connect with our community consistently. So even though there wasn't any revenue we're generating from that aspect, our revenue was how we could serve our customers, how we could serve our clients, our members, our community. Because one of the things we say is in our change leadership conferences and events is how to respond to change better and faster. So this was a time to really serve our members, to support them through the change. So we're putting out information, articles, resources, webcasts that we could use to support them in doing it. But what it also taught us, and we're glad we had that, was the power of diversity if you're a business, or even as a professional, because this is where you think about the future of work, which was in itself is disruptive. So the pandemic is only one aspect of disruption. The future of work is disrupting things. So you have to think from a diversity perspective. How diverse is your portfolio? Are you just sticking to that one technical skill you have, or are you diversifying your skills, your business? So from our business point of view, we still had our advisory, our consulting that we could fall back on, which was our cash cow, to help sustain us through the period. But from a personal perspective, I have to say it was awesome. Thankfully, I say thankfully because I know not everybody had that experience. I'm an ambivert. So as an ambivert, I have a lot of introvert tendencies. And before even the pandemic, I enjoyed working from home. I was doing remote working. So I just know how to be in my shell and be happy. So having that kind of ambiverted personality really, really came in handy for me. But one thing I know 2020 took out of me was I had to work really hard to pivot.
Yeah.
I had to work hard.
Thank you for all your answers. And yes, to all of it. I agree to all of that. I've heard some keywords that I would love to lean into in the questions as we follow. But I think what I'll do is I want to ask some specific questions to specific panelists. And Deborah, I think I want to ask you this one. What's been the hardest part of the pandemic for you? If you can share vulnerably and openly for us, and how are you coping with that?
So, for those who don't know, I've been an event planner for quite a few years. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I had a couple of events lined up. And as the pandemic hit, all the events were canceled. So we had some photo shoots, we had a couple of things happening. And every one of those things, you just watch all the doors shut down. And, we thought, okay, well, it's probably going to get better later on in the year. And as the year kept going on, we realized that it was actually becoming really, really, really bad. There was nothing happening.
Right.
So in that time, what I had to do is, as the last speaker just said, you have to pivot. So I had to figure out something totally different. And I decided to start, I started, going through for my coaching, getting all that stuff going, writing became, like a lifeline, and just, so what I did was just build myself up during that time, because I'm realizing that events are not happening. They're happening online, but events that we do, having people,
it's quite different.
It is. It's very, very different. So what do? Either you're going to sit down and fold up and die, or you're going to say, I have to do something. I've got to keep it moving. And that was one of the things I did. I had to change. I had to take it's a 360. It's not just a 180. It's like 360. It's like, okay, where am I going? I have to do something that I can do online, that I can, you're meeting people still, but you're doing it from the comfort of your home, and you're still able to work with your clients this way. And another thing for me was writing. I was able to put out another book along with a group of women and some gentlemen, and just see that take off from there. And I'm telling you, Cheryl, it's been amazing. The transformation, the things that have been happening. I was like, oh my goodness, why didn't I think of this earlier, right? But sometimes when situations happen, it shows you that you now have to change. You have to, as they say, pivot and go to something else. And so this is how I coped, because there's no events.
Yeah.
There's no events, Cheryl.
Yeah.
I was talking to another girl who was a decorator in the event world, and she's like, Deb, I don't even know what I'm going to do. There's nothing happening.
It is it's hard and challenging just on a normal level right around the table. But there are specific industries that it's absolute devastation. It's absolute devastation. And this is a great forum for us to get some understanding and to get sort of a broader view and not be so myopic, because there are industries that are literally flatlining. And you said something that's so powerful, and I just want to encourage people. I was, as a speaker, I talk about loss, when anyone that does anything in a public forum is really being hit hard. And, I'm someone that speaks 3 weekends out of 4, traveling all over the world. And I just watched in 2020, come March 1st, like you, canceled, and places, guys, like South Africa twice. I was going to South Africa twice last year, 2 different events, Los Angeles to New York to Atlanta. And, and so when I call it the bump, when you get bumped down, it's so important, like all of these panelists are saying, it's another B. I got a bunch of B's for you. Once you get bumped down, take a beat. Take a moment, as what you're hearing. Take a beat and take stock. And I love what Yvonne said. Begin to look at all of the areas of what you do and how you can, here's the other B, bend, or as they've been saying, pivot, and figure out what are the new ways that I can reinvent and do what I do on a different playing field in a different way. I'm loving this conversation. Thank you so much for sharing, Deborah. And I want to go to you, Noel, with this one, because I feel like you've got some real tools for us here. Many people have lost their jobs. And, we've talked about that loss of income, that tremendous loss of business income and financial hardship during this time. What advice would you give to those that are really experiencing financial loss?
I think this has been a huge wake-up call and a lesson for all of us, that you can't have just one income stream and you need to have more than one skill set. The idea of having one set career that you do for 20, 30, 40 years may be a thing of the past, and it's something where you have to learn how to mix it up. Some of the immediate things, though, that I've suggested to people who drive, Uber Eats has been huge for a lot of people, being able to drive cars. A lot of people are making $1,000 a week plus. You know what I mean? Like this, yeah. And so if they have a business, they can go.
Great tip.
Well, yeah, because they don't have to worry about picking up passengers. They're going straight. You're just dropping off food, and it's a very simple, easy thing to do. There's a number of folks who've actually started cleaning people's properties. You just go in, you mask up, and you go in and do cleaning and those types of things. There's also right now, there's a lot of opportunities. If you're good on the phones, there's a lot of businesses right now that need people who can be virtual assistants and answering the phones and or doing lead generation for them, going into meetup groups and learning how to get out, find meetup groups, because you can find connections. The same way you can go door to door online, you can in a place where networking. There's networking events every single day online like this, and because everybody's moved, because you've had no choice, and so I've said to people before, like, for everybody who's an entrepreneur, and they're like, man, I can't get out to network, and I said, well, ask them, well, if you take out your cell phone, how many phone numbers do you have in your cell phone, first and foremost? And they're like, I don't know, 200, 300, 500, 1,000. I'm like, well, no, if you tell me you have 500, what you're telling me is you've got 1,500, because all of them know at least 3 people, right? So you've got 1,500 contacts right here, that you can use. And then if you open up your Instagram, if you open up your Facebook, if you open up your LinkedIn, how many contacts do you have there? And the beautiful thing is that you can actually do voice notes for people. So instead of just sending out these large blasts, which I never suggest because it's so impersonal and it's clear and it's spammy. But if you're reaching out to somebody and say, hey, how you doing? This is what I've been up to. This is what I'm doing. I would think we should connect and talk. Let's see how we can help each other out. And right now, people are hungry and thirsty and looking for opportunities. You know what I mean? So connecting with people in that way. It's interesting. A lot of my students right now during the pandemic are actually breaking their financial records. Like, they're actually making more money now. Yeah, because when you have to go see clients and you have to leave your house, you're driving up and downtown, all that kind of stuff, it takes time. I can, in the same time that I would have taken to go see one client now, I can go back to back to back and have like 5, you know what I mean, inside of a 2-hour time period. I'm not spending money on gas. I'm not in traffic. I'm not doing any of that stuff. So there are pluses to this as well. You know what I mean? Like this, so it's not all negative. From my perspective. And I think that, so some of the things that, again, that I've shared with folks, to everybody who's a homeowner, I said to them, first and foremost, one of the strongest suggestions I can make right now, refinance. You're never going to get money at 1.59, 1.69% ever again. Like, this is the cheapest money you can ever get. So refinance and take your money out of your homes and start looking at to invest in your business, investing in other, like right now, particularly when they're doing a lot of money printing. I'm trying to talk fast because I know that we've got a limited time. I don't want to monopolize. So as I've talked about, the area of private lending, and if you want people want to get connected with this stuff, connect with us, connect with me. Like, we're doing sessions on this stuff all the time. So there's private lending that you can do, and you can do it in a secure way where you get security through property. There is, again, I've talked about gold and silver, which I think that people right now, honest to God, is something where it doesn't generate you income, but what it does is it protects the value of the currency, the money you have right now, as our dollars are being printed away, and so. And also, too, I would suggest that anybody, for example, like if you're sitting at home right now and you're like, okay, this sounds great, Noel, like, but what do I do, like, physically right now? Well, if you don't want to do the Uber Eats and that kind of stuff, what I would suggest is all of us use somebody's services. All of us have somebody's product or services that we use. I would go, if there's somebody who you really like, say, listen, how much would you pay me to refer your service to somebody else? You know what I mean? Like this, and say, okay, because I have like 200 or 300 people on my phone, and all I have is time because I'm at home right now. Okay, like this, and so, and then you start. If you have 20 or 30 different services that you use, and you have people in your phone list who could utilize those services, you can get commission. You can start making some money from home. I mean, PayPal. People can pay you through PayPal. They can pay you through all different types of means. So like, it's about getting creative, there's a lot available to you, but you have to be willing to do things that you haven't done before, think in ways you haven't thought before, and do things that you may never have considered before, but there is opportunity. And I'm telling you right now, I got students right now who are struggling, who are making $1,000, $2,000 a week now as I'm talking to you. You know what I mean? Like 5 figures in a month because they've had to make some shifts. So the people who are in the event business, because I know that it's been a real challenge, to be frank with you, what I would be doing if I was in the event business and I was relying on people coming out, I would be connecting with, because you've got usually speakers or people who would be coming to those events. I'd be looking at those speakers, working out back-end deals where I can promote specific little seminars that I could do online and start generating through that, because you have a base of people who would have been coming to your seminars anyway. You don't need to have 100 people or 200 people at an event. You can have 10, 20, 30 at an event, specific to needs, and then you have a deal that's worked out with with whoever was the presenter, like this. And so now, you know what I mean? So you can still generate that way. And the beauty of it is that you just have to just be done in your city. You can do it anywhere in the world. You can connect with people, this can be done anywhere. So it just means that we're adapting until God willing, we get back to real normal. You know what I mean? So those are just some things. And I have upcoming events at the end. I can share where people can join us online to get, plugged in with us and get some ideas. But dear, it's not all is lost. There's huge opportunity. And look for the needs, you know what I mean? And connect people. There's money in connecting. Trust me.
Thank you. That's so, we could end it on that. There's so many wonderful tips and tools in there. And I hope that you've all been listening and making notes. And if you have any questions around anything that Noel shared, please throw it in the Q&A and we will circle back. Yvonne, I want to go to you. I feel like this question is home base for you. It's where you're living right now. So many people are finding this new normal a bit challenging of working from home. And it seems like you found a formula that works for you. Please share any tips you have about how to maximize working at home. You mentioned that word about the pivot. Anything around that you can give us as tools?
Yes, one of the things that it's easy to do working from home is not to have a schedule. So we think we're working from home, so I'm just going to roll out of bed, and all of those things. And on the flip side too, you find, because people are now working from home, they're working longer. So the first thing I'd say is have a schedule. If you're blessed at this point in time to have a job that you can still be doing, the first thing is have a schedule, to say this is from the time I'm going to work till the time I'm going to end. And it's a little bit difficult too, if you're in a place where you have family around you, you have kids that you need to support, you have your partner, everybody has the demands that, they have all around them. So find a space. But I know that's not possible for everybody. One of the things that this pandemic also brought about was to show the disparity in income. So while some people have that opportunity to be able to work from home, have a laptop, can set up remote working, not everybody had that space. So think of people who are in places where they're sharing rooms or they're sharing space. I don't know if you've seen this advert where she goes into the garage, there's somebody there. She goes into the porch, there's someone there. She goes into the sitting room, everybody's passing. So not everybody has that opportunity. But one of the things is give yourself grace and space and time. Because sometimes we want to do so much. We feel that we're not doing enough. We feel we should be disciplined. We just want to do all kinds of things and it feels overwhelming. So it's important to say, even though there are people around me, even though I'm alone, whatever it is, give yourself that space, that grace and time that you'll be able to exhale. Because also too, we think we're not going on vacations because we can't travel. We need to work. But we also need to take vacation because we're on the screen all the time. We're working. It's 24/7. You're feeling like a personal assistant to the kids, if you have kids, so you forget about yourself. So this is where self-care becomes very important. So scheduling self-care, schedule time for yourself. And you know what? Put on some lipstick if you're a female.
That's not for you, no. Or it is for you, whichever.
Well, I say that because we feel, because we're at home, we don't have to do up our hair, we don't have to do up ourselves. And sometimes I'm happy. I come out on days whereby thank God I don't have to have the hair done and the lips done. So I take advantage of that. But sometimes you just have to, dress up and show up.
Yeah. So good. Dress up and show up. And it's about showing up. It's about continuing to show up for your business, for your home, for yourself, for your wellness, for your family. It's about continuing to show up. I've got a question that's been submitted and I think it's a good time for it. And it's to you, Deborah. Have you been able to create virtual conferences with breakout rooms so that you can still provide your clientele with positive experiences? So this is kind of right in line with what Noel was talking about. Any thoughts on that? How are you pivoting?
I actually have not been doing events at all because I chose during this time. Okay, so I probably should just go back just a little bit. Before the pandemic, I was already starting to think of making my exit strategy for, getting out of events because I've been doing it for a while. So I was already thinking, how am I going to exit? So coming into the pandemic, it just allowed me now to realize, okay, this is where I am, and this is what I am going to do now. So I started it became like nothing was happening. So I decided that I wasn't going to be concentrating on events anymore. But to that fact, exactly, I can still do meetings, of which I think I've done one or two so far, where I have people that, come in. It's a small meeting and we have, sessions and breakouts and everything like that. I'm still able to do that, which is easier than if I'm working from from outside, right? But for me, it was something that I was ready to already walk away from doing events and getting into, something that I wanted to do now for me at this place in my life, so it's still doable, very doable, and I can still do them. But I personally have decided that I was going to step away from the event field. And this time just made it so much easier.
Yeah, and this is where a global pandemic is already giving you the writing on the wall. It was a good time to shift for you, as well. I love this conversation, and there was a question that came up in the Q&A, and I feel like I will touch on that in just a moment, but it's helping me shift to this. I feel like really important moment in this conversation. I think we need to touch on mental health and our wellness. And so let's talk about resilience for a moment. I got a question for all of you, and I'd love if you can just keep your answers as short as you can, but as brilliant as they have been so far. Is resilience something that we can develop as a community, as a people, as individual, or is this a personality trait? Like a working definition of resilience for you and how we go about fostering it. Can I start with you, Yvonne?
Hi. So for me, I think it's both. I feel it's both. My experience in my life has been both. So I grew up in a space where I schooled in Nigeria. So I went to boarding school in Nigeria. And that was at the age of 11, I had to go to boarding school. So and we went through so many experiences where it was a make or break. So that started to really build my resilience in terms of do what you need to do to survive. So earlier when I started, it was a survival of the fittest kind of thing for me. And but I sometimes think it's nurture, because I've had some experiences in life through maybe death situations, losing somebody. And I found that the way I was able to deal with it, losing my dad, I had a traumatic experience while in university, which I had to be shipped out, and sent abroad, and started living by myself by the age of 16, was always that mental preparedness about it. So mental preparedness is so big. I believe so much in mindset, because the mind is able to fortify you, and that was why I actually even wrote a book on change your mindset, change your life. Because when you're able to protect your mind, which is very key around, then that is the first step to moving forward. It's almost like, I remember this thing that parents would say to you, aunts would say to you, it's like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So there was always a reminder that you either make it happen or you lose. Which one? You make a choice. So there was always a reminder about that. So I feel that, yes, our background and nurture forms that resilience, and our life experiences form that resilience for us, but only if you choose to allow it. So you also have to have the mindset and the forewithal to say, you know what, I'm going to make it happen. Regardless of what I'm going to face, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to have a pity party for a second, and have your pity party. I love my pity parties. Have it, but only for a second, and bounce back. You have to bounce back immediately. And so for me, it's been a lot of like mindset.
Thank you for that, Yvonne. So good. To you, Noel, is resilience something that can be developed?
Yes. And, I think that The first thing we start in is gratitude, and being grateful for what you do have. I mean, no matter how challenging any of our situations are, there are people around the planet who would die to have our problems, and I remember Bishop T.D. Jakes many years ago. I saw him when Oprah came to town, and he said there's a lot of people out there on this planet who would take the same hand that you're complaining that you've been dealt with in life and win with it, like this. And so the question is, what do you want? Because whatever you focus on expands. If you focus on what's not going well, you're going to continue going into that space. If you are focusing on what can I create? How can I change this? What more can happen? Your mind tunes up to a different level of frequency or energy, and answers begin to come. And what I would suggest is always have to remember that two objects can't occupy the same space at the same time. You can't have two different thoughts at the exact same time. So you can't be grateful and ungrateful at the same time. You know what I mean? And so it's something where we need to make a decision about what it's going to be. And it's a personal choice. And I know that sometimes when you're in it and you're dealing with the stuff in the life and everything like that, it can be challenging. And like Yvonne rightfully said, we don't want to stay there long. We can give ourselves a moment,
I love that.
And let it go and all that kind of good stuff. But then it's like, okay, what are we going to do here? Because we're either going to have excuses or we're going to have results. One thing that I do want to say is something that just as an encouragement. Even no matter where it has been no matter where the tough times have been for people in this world, whether it was during the Great Holocaust, whether it was in concentration camps, whether it was in South Africa during apartheid, whether it was, slavery, whatever the case may be, we've all come through it. And I guess we've always come through it. And again, the question is, what do you what do you want your legacy to be, particularly if you've got children? We don't have the luxury, of being in that state for an extended period of time, because we got people looking at us saying, hey, come on, mom, come on, dad, what are we going to do here? And so I would say that to get out of the funk, I tell people a couple of things. One, connect with other people and who are upbeat, not people who are going to give you the pity party, but people who have got good things that are happening. You know what I mean? Like, it's because it's that connection with people. Just when you're in a negative space, it helps. And also too, maybe watching something that's inspiring, listening to an inspiring word of people who some things that lift you up. Because again, two objects can't occupy the same space at the same time. Then once you sort of got that recharge or the reset there, then it's like, okay, so what do we want to do now? What are we going to create now? What are we going to do now? A lot of people didn't make it to this year. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that we are alive and that we get a chance to see another sunset. None of us know how many more sunsets that we're going to get.
That's right.
Let's the ones that we have left. You know what I mean? All right.
Thank you so much, Noel. Thank you so much. Such wisdom. I was typing feverishly as you were speaking. Such good nuggets. Deborah, anything you'd like to, we're going to stay here in camp in resilience, but anything you want to add about resilience in terms of can we foster that? Can we create that?
Sure. One of the things I'd say is that someone who is resilient is someone that is able to grow. If you're resilient, you can grow. So meaning you're not going to sit back, as Yvonne said, in the pity party mode. You're bouncing back. You don't just stay there. You're able to grow. You do not handle everything the same way each time. You learn from your past and you get better at handling change. So a lot of us are not able to handle change well. But if you're resilient, you can handle the change, because everything when things change, it grows. It doesn't stay the same, right? So that's something that we have to learn from the past and get better at handling change. And it certainly is a skill that has to be developed and practiced. And if you've had situations, again, as Yvonne and Waldron said, you have to have a spirit of gratitude, a heart of gratitude. You got to be grateful for where you are, because, somebody else may not have the same thing that you have. And if they get what you have, they are so grateful for just this little thing. Sometimes it's just a cup of water. You think about some of the people that don't even have running water. And they have to live just the same. But we have to be grateful for everything that we have. And when the situations come upon us, we're able to say, okay, this is this is a tough one. COVID is a tough situation, but guess what? I'm gonna make it, and I'm gonna be stronger for it. And so that's how I look at resilience, is being able to have that gratitude and to be able to bounce back.
I love that. I love that. This quote from Yvonne is really resonating with me. I thought I'd just read it in our hearing. She says, "If you've forgotten the language of gratitude, you'll never be on speaking terms with happiness." Love that. Love that. Thank you, Yvonne. As a Black community, talk to me about our ability to be resilient. Do we have a culture of resilience, Yvonne?
Oh, that's a difficult one.
This is what you call a rhetorical.
You know what? I want to say yes. I want to say yes because, we've had to face so many experiences early on, whether you've lived in, say, maybe Africa and, let's call a spade, many of those African countries have been third world countries. So you have a lot of things that just don't work, in the way it should work. So we go through, different types of struggles where we develop resilience just as part of life. It's just like a get on with it. You make things work. And that's even what leads to innovation in that, in those communities, because people keep on looking for ways to make things work. It becomes part of life. And then when you think about people who, at one way or the other, you think through our backgrounds, where we've been living in a country like this forever, and we're born here, and our parents were grandparents, we went through slavery. And slavery had that ability to build resilience again. Yes. Because they, our forefathers and those people who had to go through slavery, they had to get on with it. It wasn't any.
They had no time to grieve.
No, they had to get on with it. So we've had that kind of background and upbringing, but unfortunately, I think it's also done us a little bit of harm when it comes to even mental health now, because we've always been told just get on with it. And because we've always been told to get on with it or just do it, we're not talking about it. I'm so glad yesterday was Bell Let's Talk, because it reminds us that we need to talk about these things. We need to open up about them, because the more we just keep them in, yes, it's helped us build resilience, but there's a way that you can still continue to build resilience with mindset, but still talk about it. So yes, I would say we have resilience, but again, it's no longer as it used to be, because when you think of kids that you're bringing up in Canada, like if you're an immigrant parent, yes, it was get on with it. But if you're now raising kids in Canada, which is not the same kind of experiences they had there, you can't bring them up with the same kind of gloves. If they did not experience slavery, you cannot bring them up with the same type of gloves. You have to start opening lines of communication to help with our mental health. Just talking helps.
This is a town hall of town halls, people. We are sitting around the fire. No, we really are. This is a moment, and we welcome all diversity to this conversation, but it is so healing. It is so important for us as a community to sit in community in this moment and talk with one another about how we cope as a community, what has worked for us in the past, like you said, Yvonne, what has not, and how do we do better in that area. Noelle or Deborah, I'll take one more comment just in this area of our community and how we handle hardship and resilience. Any thoughts from either one of you?
I think Yvonne said just about everything that needed to be said, quite frankly. I think it was a mic drop moment. So I thought
I heard it.
She did exceptionally well. So I'm happy to take on the next question.
Okay. And, let's read some comments that have come in. We want it to be fully interactive. And we've got some people warming up and giving some great comments. Colette says, we fall down and we get up. We have overcome through slavery, apartheid, and oppression. We had knees on our necks and have pushed them off and pressed on, and still we rise. Woo. I felt that one. Amen to that. Mona says, outstanding program, well-chosen panelists, great content. Thank you. And Patricia says, very correct, Yvonne. We are told that admitting that you are not okay is a sign of weakness, and we have to indeed sort of dispel that myth and talk about it. And lastly, we have to change from the words or phrases. So it's a new language. So there's some new languaging that needs to come in of how parents speak to Black children and children of the African diaspora. That's a big one. I'll get this one before I move on. Just in time, Kwabena. Kwabena says, I agree 100%, especially as Black men. Sometimes we are told not to show weakness and to express our feelings, and we end up temporarily trying to numb the pain instead of seeking help for our problems. I actually want to veer off script. I really feel like, Noel, you need to speak to this, because the issue of mental health with our Black men is such an untouched, yet it's a mighty chasm. There's a breaking, there's a loss, there's suicide. It's just any word for just BIPOC men who are on this Zoom today.
You know, I remember when I was a teenager, and at the time I was not in school, because I was at a private school. I injured my knee, was on codeine, ended up getting addicted to codeine, and then ended up grades fell, couldn't focus, and then ended up having to leave the school. Embarrassing, because I was a student body president of the school, one of 3 Black people in the entire school, and I remember being at home, and I was like, man, what do I do? You know what I mean? I guess, what direction am I going to go? And so obviously my mom is one of the most encouraging, loving, supportive people you'll ever find on the planet, and so I was a bit lost. And then there was a brother. I was a part of a group called the Black Youth Congress, and so this gentleman, Brother Donnie, we had he gave me a lift home, and I literally, it was the first time in a long time I had actually broken down in tears in front of another guy. You know what I mean? Because when you're kids, you're young, like, boy said, don't cry, be a man. You know what I mean? This and this, and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that, I have learned, and because when I asked him for some help, because I was just, as great as mom is, sometimes you just don't want to talk to mom, and sometimes you just don't want to talk to that. You just want to talk to somebody else. You know what I mean? Like this, and as great as the advice could be, sometimes you just don't. You just want to talk to somebody else. And I think that it was through that he actually became a mentor of mine. You know what I mean? And like a big brother to me. And and one of the things that I learned is that the wisest thing anybody can ever do is ask for help. He said, because it's something where, and it's not because you're not smart enough to figure it out, because what happens is that we get stuck in the stuff, and it's like we feel like particularly as men, particularly if you've got a family, it's like, you feel like you're not being a man, you're not handling it. They go, oh my God, you're human. The you part comes there too, right? Like this. And so asking for help is important to collapse time. The thing that may have taken you 6 months to a year to figure out, with just asking somebody else, you could have figured it out in a couple of minutes. You know what I mean? I guess, and so I've learned to not be a sucker for punishment. You know what I mean? Like this, and and because I want pain to be fleeting, I'm going to find somebody who's got the answer, male, female. I don't care what community it comes from. Whoever knows the best way of the burning house, please lead the way. You know what I mean? I guess because they're and so. In terms of getting that personal piece to my brothers that are maybe on the call, I would just say that family, the best thing you can do is ask for help, and crying is a part of release, and it's important to release that stuff that's inside you, because when you bottle it up, you get all kinds of other health conditions that begin to emerge by holding it in. That just isn't just true for men, that's true for women too, it's true for human beings. And so it's important to release it, then let it go, and then refocus on what you want to get. So to any of the brothers who may be on the call, really and truly, sometimes maybe it means finding another brother that you can speak to, somebody who you look up to, somebody who you respect. So, you know what I mean? To say, hey, look, I'm having a challenge here, man. I'm not dealing with this thing real well, like this, and who isn't going to be judgmental, who you can actually talk to. And to me, if you have a true friend, because friendship to me isn't just, hey, buddy, let's go drink for drinks. Friendship means that if I'm having a challenge, I can talk to you. If I can't tell you the truth about what I'm dealing with, you're not a friend. You know what I mean? So like this.
So good.
you're an acquaintance. You're not a friend. You know what I mean? Like, so you need to have a circle of people that you can talk to who are going to be real with you and be supportive of you and have your back. So
thank you.
Is important. So hope that helps.
Thank you so much. And please flood our conversation. We still have a bit more time. We've got just a few questions. We're winding down now. We're on the other side of the mountain coming down. We've got 3 questions left, but we welcome your comments. They'll all be mentioned. It's incredible feedback that you're giving. Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to dive a little deeper. We're going to drill down even more. So the conversation is going to get a bit heavier, but much needed. Let's talk about grief. Coping mechanisms, grief coping mechanisms. And this question hits really close to home for me. So I'll take my time walking through it. COVID is one of these unique experiences. I've been likening it to racism. Follow me for a moment. Unless you have a personal experience with it, it is hard as a people, as a community, to explain the immeasurable impact that it is currently having. And people of other demographics are finding a disconnect in the true weight of the moment. And so this is such a great conversation. There are so many lives that have been lost due to COVID. And I will share personally to give you a face for those that are still sort of not getting any sort of real world experience, like everyday experience. I lost in 2020 7 people. I had 7 deaths just last year, and many due to COVID, some not. But the amount of deaths that are happening, I've said this, our community is being hit so hard, and our people are just dying. Our people are dying. How do we as a community work through this hard moment? How do we deal with grief? Any coping mechanisms, any tips you can give, even someone like myself. I literally had to bury my mother-in-law. That was one of the closest to me, my mom. December 23rd, she passed of COVID. December 30th, New Year's Eve, while everyone's getting ready to celebrate, we were outside burying her. 10 people only, both inside and outside allowed. 10. 6 of them were pallbearers. So this is where we're at. Any tips, please? I'd like to start with you, Deborah. How do we work through our grief as a community?
It's a really tough question. Actually, as you were talking there, I just kind of teared up because I understand what grief is, because I lost my dad a little over a year ago. And I know the grieving process. It's a lot of people say, especially if I could say in the Christian community, they tell you that, they're in a better place and, we don't grieve as everyone else grieve and that sort of thing. But grief is grief. Death is not something that we ever expect. It's something, whether that person was ill or whether they died suddenly, it still takes you the same way. And one of the things that I can share is that you need to be able to grieve openly or grieve however that frame is for you. You have to grieve. If you are in a moment and you feel like you've got to cry, let it out, because it's better you let the tears flow. It's cleansing, it's healing. Cry if you have to. Don't just bottle it in. Let it go. Sometimes you talk about that person. And another thing that I would say too is also to go to grief counseling. I'm going to put up a number for the Toronto area. Go to grief counseling. Sometimes it's a couple of sessions. It could be in a group setting. Now a lot of things are group. You get on there and they tell you, they talk about grief, because grief is real. Some people are crippled by grief. Maybe it's a wife that lost her spouse, a child that's lost their mom or their dad. And you need to go through the process, but you also sometimes need to know, how do I navigate that? What does that look like? Am I going to be better
5 days from now or 6 months or even a year, So I would say get some counseling because it really, really does help, and talk to people. Don't suffer in
Thank you.
silence.
That's so good. Don't suffer in silence.
No.
Yvonne, tips for us who are grieving.
Oh my gosh, it's an individual thing. That's one thing everybody has to be aware of. No two people can deal with it the same way. And also, even people who are supporting people who are grieving, you need to be careful in terms of what you're saying to them in the process of giving advice. So I'm not even giving advice here, but I'm just sharing my own experience. I lost my dad like over 25 years ago. And, it was a case of he being ill. And then I just kept on saying, what if they just tell me my dad is dead? And let me put in context. I was a daddy's girl. I was the only girl. So I was like pure daddy's girl. Everybody knew I was daddy's girl. So I said, what if they told me he was dead? What would I do? And as soon as I heard that he was dead, I just went into closure. I just said, oh, okay. So like, what's next? Because I'd already put a wall around myself. And it wasn't until months, like almost a year later, when a friend lost somebody else and I actually cried for my dad. And it wasn't until another 20 years later when an uncle asked me something that I thought it would be my dad that should be asking me that question.
And it triggered you.
It triggered me again, And what I would advise anybody to learn about grief, there's what you call the Kubler-Ross change curve, which is it's all about grief, but we now use it in the corporate world and on the organizations in terms of how to manage change. And it goes through, people start from shock, denial, like, no, this isn't happening to me, frustration, like, realizing that things are different. Sometimes they're angry. Then you go into depression. Then you start to experiment, do different things. Then you make a decision to move on. And then you start to integrate things in your new life. And yes, that's the curve that you can go through, but not everybody goes through that curve in the same way.
That's right.
For me, I went in from, I didn't even experience shock, frustration, depression. I went immediately into a decision and integration. Let's get on with it.
So good. Let me just weigh in on this one. I just feel like it's so important for me to say this. It's been said in different ways. It is so important when one is grieving to not project your ideas, as has been said, your ideas, your imaginations of what you think that grief process should look like and how it should be walked out. Very, very dangerous to do. The second thing is, do not place your timelines or do not place timelines on someone's grieving process. What do I mean by that? Hey, hasn't it been 2 years? Hasn't it been 10 years? Didn't that happen so long ago? And, we have to allow people their time and space and breadth to grieve in the ways they need to grieve. And you're right, it doesn't look the same. My husband is a very stoic, quiet, close person. And I was expecting him when his mother passed to just have the meltdowns that we were all, and everyone grieves a different way. It does not mean it's not genuine, legitimate, painful, but the process looks different. So we need to give each other space to let that happen. Oh yeah, someone said, do not place timelines on someone's grief. It is so true. It's one of the worst things we can do. And can I just say that the reverse is true? For someone like Yvonne who may have gotten sort of off the ground running again, don't look down on someone because they're able to function during grief. Sometimes we do that that's a bad thing, but everyone's wiring is different and how they process grief. Such a great conversation, guys. Thank you so much. I want to ask this one as we start to wind down, and I feel like it's important. We've been talking about the challenge in our thinking of asking for help being a sign of weakness. And Noel, you touched on that so well. I'd love to ask you this question. What's your take on sharing one's struggles with others? Especially during this time, what forums, what places, where can people go to share, to find community, to lift one another up? Any thoughts?
Frankly, that's a little bit of a curveball. So for me, I just find that in terms of where people can go, Well, earlier I had made a suggestion of, looking out to one's immediate friends, because assuming that you have a quality group of people that are around you. If you don't have that, one of the things that I found is that, there are a lot of different faith groups that I think are awesome, and I think that when you find other people of faith, and again, trying to get away from that entire, I don't want to use the term pity party, because when you're in a space and there's a reason you're there, you know what I mean, like this, so I'm not trying to minimize it, but the idea though is that one of the things that I've come to learn about the law of attraction is that whatever you feel dictates what frequency you're functioning on, and the frequency you're functioning on dictates what comes into your world. And I wasn't going to talk about it because I left it to the ladies, but I'll just say this: that when my uncle Winslow had passed away, that one actually hit me, because there was a bunch of, I've been like, one year I went to like 8 funerals in a year. So sometimes you almost get numb to it, because you've seen so many and you've been through it so many times in a year. But when he passed, that one hit me hard because of his relationship with me. And one of the things that I thought, there were two thoughts that came into my mind. One, because I had an event planned. Do I continue doing this stuff? Do I shut it down? Like, what do I do? And I said, you know what would my uncle want me to do? And the answer was, he'd say, boy, go do this thing, go lift up the family name. Like, that's what he would say. He would say, live your life and enjoy. I live my life, live yours. And be like, would he want me to be in a state of being upset? No, he wouldn't. He'd say, man, look, go have a glass for me, raise a glass for me. You know what I mean? Like this and that, or if I had to soak the fat, go take a wine for me, right? So like, that's what my uncle would say to me, right? Because that's just him. And so this thinking about what he would want for me changed sort of the way that I approached what I was doing. So I did the event in his name and in his honor, and so that is, if anybody can use that as a tool, great. But in terms of reaching out to people, I'm fortunate in that I have a good group of people around me. I would say if you're looking for a great community, come join us, the Dreamaholic community. It's a group of people that are very powerful or growth oriented. I'll type in the chat where they can come and join us on these things, and also getting tools to help you get through it. And I agree with you 100%, Cheryl, that everybody has a different process and way of getting through it. What I like to be able to help people do is get through it faster. And the reason is that I understand from an energy and frequency standpoint what it's doing, because the universe doesn't care what we're feeling. I mean, it just reacts and responds to what we're feeling, and there is a cause and effect from it. And what tends to happen is that, unfortunately, and it's not just, it could be a feeling of being violated for somebody, whether it could be somebody that was molested, raped, robbed, stolen from, beaten up by somebody, whatever the feeling of violation came from, or mourning in the case of death. Irrespective of the reason why we're feeling what we're feeling, there is a very real effect that will come because whatever dominant thought that you hold will attract the like to it, like this. And so if you do, and so as much as, yes, we definitely need to take that time to go through the process, if there's a way to get out of it faster so that we can get into that happy, grateful, joyful, passionate, loving space, you know what I mean? So now we are in a space where we're going to attract more things in that light. Anything that I can do to be a part of helping people with that, that's what I'm here. That's what we're here to do. You know what I mean?
So good. So good. Thank you so much. I'd love to keep going on this, but I do want to be mindful of our time. We've got just about 4 minutes left until we begin to close off everything. Thank you for all of your contributions. And before I get to the last question, I just really want to include our audience, our group that is joining us, our town hall participants, if you will. I want to read the comments that have come up. I'll start back here. Maria says, this is great. Don't suffer in silence. Thank you for that. Someone said, don't place timelines on someone's grief. Yes, so that was a point that really resonated. Another person said, right, Cheryl, sometimes you don't move on, but you move through with the loss, and one day you'll be able to remember the departed from a place of sweet memories. INU says, Yanyu says there's strength in being able to ask for help. There's strength in that. Sometimes the asking for help in and of itself is the release that one needs. Mona says connect with others, find events that can provide positive vibes to lift you up, sing, take exercise, pray, and believe. These helped me during my time of bereavement. Noel has given us his website for us to connect. And Yvonne has a great suggestion. She says Clubhouse is a new great place to connect as well, to find community. And I want to add right here, because it's so important, the Transformation Institute is actually putting on these webinars for the purpose of community, for the purpose of healing, for the purpose of growth, and for us to be able to work through these things together. And the very next one, guys, is solely on mental health. So it's exactly what we need in this time. So I encourage you to join up for that one and sign up for that. That's going to be a really important discussion that we're going to have. Guys, I've come to the last question. I wish I didn't have to leave you. And this has been such a good one. I want to ask everyone in our panel this question and let you have a chance to go out on a word of encouragement. For someone out there that is about to give up, they're at the end of their rope, they're overwhelmed and feel quite battered by the situations and the circumstances we find ourselves in, all of it. Racial tensions, throw it all in, guys, everything. What's your word of encouragement for them? I'll start with you, Deborah.
Don't give up.
Oh, that's all that needs to be said? Don't give up. So good. Thank you for that. Yvonne, any last words for you?
There's always light at the end of the tunnel. There's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you so much for that, Yvonne. Noel, any words?
Yes, God allowed every single one of us to wake up for a reason today. He's not done with us. He's got work for us to do. And inspiration is an instruction from our Creator to do something. And my suggestion is let's get back into faith, you know what I mean, and begin to look deep into what God has for us. And let's get on task. Let's go. Like you've got so much greatness in you, and He's allowing you another moment so that you can go create and make manifest everything that He's put in your heart. So let's go get it.
I love it. Don't give up. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. God is not through with you yet. We hope that you have been encouraged. We hope that you have found a bit of strength for the journey, a bit of light for the journey, and that you know above all things that we will rise and fall together. And that is who we are as a community. We will always come together, and we are great. We are greater, better, stronger together than we are apart. And so I encourage you to keep growing in community, keep leaning on one another. We wish you God's best. And I'm so excited to continue these conversations. We invite you to join us again for these incredible panels. And at this time, I'm going to hand it back over to our illustrious leaders.
I just want to thank everyone, the panelists. You guys were incredible. Like, I'm still, in awe of, your remarks and your comments. This was very, informative, insightful, and inspiring. And I just want to encourage everyone out there. I know they say that tough times never last, but tough people do. And we're right now saying to ourselves, these tough times have lasted, long enough. But Noel said something profound. The fact that God, made you wake up today is for a reason and a purpose. So let's hang in there. Let's stick in there. And we will see the other side. And when we do, we'll actually come out stronger, tougher, and better. And I believe that God will see us all through. So our next webinar is on February 2nd. It's on mental health. Do join us. Let's talk about these things together. And I know we have a few panelists, but I tell you, some of the comments in the chat actually inspired me a lot,
Yes.
So when we come together as a community, there's nothing stronger than that. And I actually feel stronger just listening to all of you, especially, being vulnerable, telling us challenges that you had. I want to thank you for that, for telling us honestly what you're each going through. And Cheryl, you're amazing, as always. You're amazing. You're amazing.
Thank
Amazing.
you.
Thank you so much. And do take care. God bless. And, let's just keep on keeping on.
Yeah. And as we get ready to go, as we sign off, I want to just echo the words again from our brother Noel. If you woke up this morning, it's because you have a work to do. God is not through with you yet. Go and change your world. Thank you so much, Patricia and Moses. Thank you, Transformation Institute. Have a great night, everyone.
On Tuesday, February 2nd at 6 p.m., join us for a webinar on the impact of COVID-19. Navigating current and future mental challenges. Panelist Noah Mugenyi, mental health professional, educator, and author. Nicole Waldron, mental fitness coach and podcast host. And Joshua Huerto, motivator and singer-songwriter. Moderator Nikki Clark, author and host of The Nikki Clark Show. Get your free tickets at eventbrite.ca. This is part of the Community Resilience Program of the Transformation Institute for Leadership and Innovation. Visit transformationinstitute.ca.